Are you excited for the end of the semester, Sean?
Yes, I am.
Hi. All right, and I'll bet Sam isn't excited for the rest of for the end of the semester. Okay. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Great. Morning, everybody. Yeah. You figure out the map here? Pretty artistic rendering of the piano, if I do say so myself. Yeah. You're all going to be soloists today. No, there's two tenors there. So. Are you ready for the night? Good. Marcus has achieved post-recital. That's a good feeling. So I got I'm just looking at who I got here. So I got Faith, Maggie, Sean, Sam, and me. Oh, I'm the teacher. Oh yeah. There we go. Just checking you people out.
I'm here.
Good morning. My pianist is here. Morning. Don't forget your magical wipe. Don't forget your magical wipe. Kira gets to be a soprano soloist.
Oh no, I thought the soprano said.
Actually, the alto should be over here.
I'm singing.
You're
No,
what?
I'm not singing soprano.
No. But see, there's the piano. There's me. Point right to the. I was going to say eventually you singers know where how you draw, but evidently it's my own singers that can't read much. Hold on. You don't even have to practice that today.
Wait, really?
Just Shoshone song, yeah. Folks at home, we're still gathering our chorus. We'll be. You're singing alto, right? Or what are you singing?
Soprano.
Okay. There you go. All right, I'm going to start with a few of the strong, the proud, the brave that are here and some that are at home. So, this is another thing that you can do once your singers get used to your nomenclature and your designs and all of that. Is it's a shorthand once they know, of course, who they are. Like I'm a tenor, I'm a bass, I'm an alto, I'm a soprano, and then when I deal in my own choirs with subdivisions, then I might draw a line and say soprano twos here, soprano ones, bass twos, etc. So that they sort of know that it's a general seating. They can sit within the parameters of those seats, but not in a specific order like what we did in a couple of other classes. So that setup gets us to where we are today. And so another way to kind of, do a shorthand that you're not sitting there taking time for class. And of course, certain things can be understood later in the semester than earlier in the semester, and so on and so forth. So then I just wanted you to see that more clearly for all the good that it did me. I'm just not an artist. As Marcus said, that's why we went into the performing arts and not into the visual ones. So then we go back to, the day's venue, so to speak. Today, Emma has graciously agreed to serve as the pianist, the rehearsal pianist today, and this may or may not be the case for you, but at some point if you're programming a piece that has an accompaniment, you're going to get a pianist into play. And we're going to assume that for today's little session we have a pianist, because we do. So the warm-up, yeah.
If you don't have a pianist, where do you get one?
Well, you can get one from a mom, sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes there's people in your, parents of your choristers who play and are really happy and willing to come in and assist. They may not be available for like regular, but maybe you can arrange 3 or 4 times before the concert that they can come in. And some of those people, I would offer them something, some sort of stipend, but you can, I'm going to talk very specifically about some of those issues in our last class, but that's because that's such a great question. If you're not playing, who does it? There's also, we have to might train our own people. Like let's say Emma was a sophomore in high school, and it was the first year that she was in my choir. I would have to spend some time coaching her out of class. And if you're not a pianist, again, then what do you do then? And there's all sorts of questions about that, but that's really a good question. Let's assume we have an answer for that today. And so I'm not going to take you through a warm-up, but that's the way you would start. Can you figure this out, Brian? No. Oh, you don't have it up there. Yeah, back row. Can you read my mind, Brian?
Pretty good.
So warm-up, let's say we've already done it, but one of the things that we do, if you remember these nifty little charts from months ago, is that the vocal tract, I got the right page on here, here's the bisection of our heads. We have all of these spaces. You are correct, sir. That's perfect. We are trying to open them up a little bit in the warm-up, and that's partly what we've already done, assuming that that's the case. You see this, people at home? This is what I'm referring to, and it's those diagrams that show the innards of our vocal tract. And so we're trying to lengthen and expand the vocal tract, and so a lot of what we're doing in the warm-up does that. So just on a random pitch, I'd like you to sing in your own range on this pitch, and will you please sing the vowel O? Ready? Go. O. Now, just sing it kind of like I'm doing, which is not much preparation. I'm singing it like I just woke up. Oh, ready, go. Oh, that's what's going to happen when people get into that's what I feel like today. So all of the things that we set up in the warm-up, we're hopefully going to then refer to it, or at least the concepts will already be there in in the first sounds that we make. Then we know that breath is the other thing that we want to get going. So let's assume that we've done some kind of, Nick, we've got a seat for you too. Right there, right in the middle. Get your wiper. We don't want, yeah, there you go. Okay, so would you take your pointer, one of your pointers, you pick which one, and we're going to start with that right here. And let's, as we breathe, we're going to go back, and then as we exhale, we're going to go this way. And the vowel we're going to breathe through, we're going to pretend we're saying an ooh, and we're going to breathe through that shape. Okay, now we've got something visual in front of us, and that is going to be out in the middle of the room or out here, wherever you're looking, is a candle, and we're going to slowly send that air to blow out that candle. So join me, let's take a breath. Good. Now let's do that with ooh. This time we'll exhale on the vowel singing in that pitch. So take a breath. Ooh. So perhaps we have set up something like that as well. So it's the combination of the inner space, the breath, and we're kind of ready to go. If you're an instrumentalist and you have a woodwind instrument, for those of you at home, you can try this at home, Sam, and you have a woodwind instrument, do you pull it out, or do you try to push it together if you're going sharp? What do you do, Sam?
Out.
Yeah.
Pull it out.
What'd you say?
Pull it out.
Yeah, you pull it out. So it's lengthening the tube, right, to get a little bit more space to fill up the resonating chamber. It's the same thing we do with the voice. So if I, ooh, I'm going to ask my choir to take a breath and make a little bit bigger space. So try that now using that breath. You don't have to do all of this, but let's put it on a breath that goes somewhere, okay? Taking a breath in through an ooh, but in the back of our throats, we're going to feel it's a little bit more open than it was the first time, all right? Take it in. Ooh. Typically, that adds lower overtones. If we open up the space and the lower partials start to become more active, which rounds out the bottom of the overtone series. So that's going to help with the tuning, just like it would in a wind instrument. So now let's talk about subglottal pressure. What's subglottal pressure? Here's that nifty, the bottom diagram now, where the vocal folds reside inside our larynxes. They lie like this. Subglottal pressure means the pressure that the air comes up through. So everybody just go, huh! Huh! Do you think that's light or harsh subglottal? That's hard, powerful subglottal pressure. So we're putting lots of air under those folds and, huh! Now go, huh. That's kind of an airy, light tone. So subglottal pressure, if there's no, what we worked on just a minute ago, resonating chamber expanded, and then we find out where that soft palate, soft and hard palate are, is going to lead, what would you think that this would lead to? Sharping or flatting?
I think flatting.
Sharp, yeah, I'll make it really obvious. If the subglottal pressure is really heavy or really forceful, it only makes sense that it's going to press that fleshy stuff, and basically your singers are going to sing too loud, forceful, and without any sort of finesse. That's going to typically lead to sharping. And so one can sing lazily and sharp, lazily and flat. High energy and sharp, high energy and flat. So there's also this. Flatting. So I mean, it can be. The issue is, okay, what am I hearing them do, and then what is maybe the remedy for that? So you know what hyper and hypo means, right? Hyper is too much of something. Hypo is too little of something or less. So there could be hyper energy. So I have a fast, rapid piece where the articulations are where the articulations are so quick. Rhythmic subdivisions. We sing rhythmic subdivisions and the tempo's fast. That will have a tendency to be sharp with a choir. If I sing slow and sustained Renaissance motet, that will have a tendency to flat. And so that issue is like, yeah, I get that. But it's like, those are going to be the 2 or 3 biggest issues that we deal with in the choral rehearsal, is low energy for really sustained singing and hyper energy for really fast tempos. So we'll talk about some specific examples of, okay, what do we do about it? But to follow through on what we were just talking about in terms of the space and the breath, now say, will you join me with little bunny ears right here? Okay. Just say, Shoshone love song.
Shoshone love song.
Shoshone love song.
Shoshone love song.
Shoshone love song. Shoshone love song. Yeah, so rather than, I went off, I shouldn't have done that, but it's more of a timbral thing, so a forward and dark and back. So in vocal circles, we call this a covered sound, and this is a forward nasal sound. So all of the vowels can be put there, right? Any single vowel can be put there, but hopefully you can what the heck does this mean? Whoops. I'm so used to writing an IPA that I can't remember how to do it phonetically. Without the diphthong. Okay. So these are international phonetic alphabet symbols. And they mean the same thing in any language we use. I'm not teaching you phonetic alphabet, but some of the people in this class know it quite fluently. And so however we are teaching our kids, that's a system. And there is Richard Cox is the author in your textbook that offers an entire chapter on diction. I never cover that because we teach diction at this school. And so one can't learn diction in 2 easy classes. So what I would really promote is you can learn this on your own, the phonetic alphabet, or you can, better yet, sometime take a course, a short course. You can take it online. There are courses. But the point is that we deal with making sound on vowels. Vowels is what we sing on in choral music. We don't sing on consonants, and that's their nasal consonants, like but when we make understandable words, we must be singing on the vowels. So these are the 7 Italian vowels, and what it shows is there's something called closed and there's something called open, open, closed. But I'd like you to just say, do that. take my mask off, try kind of smiling and imagining that you're showing teeth because we can't see any of our teeth. But imagining that there's more teeth, a little less teeth, a little less, almost none. Lips start to pucker, pucker more, and pucker the most. Okay? Let's start with an E, kind of a smile inside. E. So what happens is, it's almost like the inversion. And why is this important? Because this is what you're going to be dealing with every day with those kids. And there's a natural physiologic phenomenon that occurs when they make these sounds. And so before we get to the text of the piece, we have to understand going into this what is going to be happening with them just saying or singing these things on the text. And so if you feel just for the back of your throat, okay, as we go through this kaleidoscope of sound. Feel the back of the throat. Here we go. E. Until the last one. Doesn't the throat open a little? I mean, E, that's not open. E, it starts to open. Oh, there it's open. Oh. And we already talked about the lips. The lips do just the opposite. They go from the most open position to the most closed one. E, and I'm talking open smile. E, right? So the exact opposite thing starts to happen back here as happens in the front. Make sense? Okay, so let's just keep track of those two things simultaneously occurring. Ready? Go. So, ah is the most open vowel, and it has the least pressure in the back of the throat in terms of a aperture, like a camera lens, and almost no lip involved in it. So that's why ah is often used as a neutral syllable, regardless of what James Jordan says. Because James Jordan doesn't advocate the ah vowel very much. However, it is called the workhorse vowel in most every single vocal text for a reason, and that's why. I just want to make a justification for why we would choose vowels. Now say, woo! Woo! The concept that we just discussed about the back of the throat being pretty much open, as long as you make sure it is. Woo! Do that. Woo! Now close the lips with that open throat. Woo! Woo! It focuses the projection with your lips, but it allows for space in the back of the throat. These are the concepts that we've tried to open up in our warm-ups. So the knowledge of that means that going into whatever text you're using with your students, you're already prepared. Okay, who's going to have this quality? Fair is the white star of twilight and the sky clear at days. And there's a series of things that are going on in there that we have already gone, we've read through, we felt them ourselves, and we know the general qualities of what happens with the back of the throat and the lips already, and then we're prepared to some degree to deal with what's going to be, on their agenda for the day. So let's go, and I'm going to take you through a couple of exercises as if you're, because you will be now, the singers. So you remember what we did with that breath exercise, and we projected it out. Just do it one more time on an ooh, and just make the sound not on a fixed pitch, but just a chant or a sigh. Just say, ooh, do that. Ooh. Okay. Now go. Ooh, do that. Ooh. Okay. As we go up in pitch, imagine that the back of the throat opens just slightly, okay? Just slightly. So try that again and go, ooh, and open the back of the throat, and ooh. Yeah, so if we'll use that concept now when we're singing, you're gonna sing now, like you sing on the vowel ooh, and when the pitch goes up, the back of the throat expands a little bit. And I don't mean balloons out like a bullfrog. This is subtle, subtle little gradations of movement, okay? So here we go with our wonderful pianist. And boy, I'm lucky to have a mom that plays this well. And we're on ooh, here we go. Good, keep going. All right. Okay, good, good, good. So if you feel a little bit of what I was talking about, boy, it helps to have a little bit more space in the back, because what doesn't happen is what we talked about in the opening, glottal, subglottal pressure that there's no escape from. You're going to hear that. You're going to deal with it. And for some, it's going to take a while. I don't mean you. This is something we do. All of these things is something we do in 1 or 2 rehearsals. Wow, I've got a fantastic choir. This is a years-long process that they learn the language and they start to do things like, oh, open my space a little bit when there's a long note, when I go up in pitch, and then, all of those things come together.
If you have a choir that's like an increasing, like, persistent problem, would straw singing be a good way to help that?
Yeah, but that's an advanced concept a little
Okay.
bit, so we'll, but it's the same thing that we're doing now in a different way. What straw singing, what she's referring to the non-vocalist, is that there's a real prevalent technique that is either using a straw in water and bubble the water, or just using a straw with a smaller circumference. Gets at this, focuses the airstream, and also projects you hum or sing through it. The problem is you've got to be real careful with the subglottal pressure. And you've got to not have a straw that's too small. But I don't want to get into that, because that is a whole bunch of, everybody's got lots of questions. What I really need are less bright people, just lemmings to go through this class and sit there and yes, fine. I'm kidding. I appreciate those questions, because they're gonna come up. All right, so let's go back and let's try the text. Okay, so we've rehearsed a bit longer using various vowels. In fact, let's do one. Let's pull back for a minute and let's try a different extreme, the other extreme vowel. We just sang that. Let's try E on the same melody. Okay, so here we go. Right where you come in. Let's take a breath through an E. 1 and 2. Yeah, there's something easier about singing on that, because the front of the mouth is not engaged. That creates tension, right? The problem with E is that you go up, you feel that lens and that lens aperture. It gets a little tight, doesn't it? And some of your kids will just stop singing after a while. So that's the other thing, is to experiment on your own So, because your own mechanisms are going to do, your own voices are going to show you what the kids need to do, is to experiment on each of them. But let's go right to the text now. Here we go. Fair is the white. And okay. Now back to what we talked about in terms of these vowels, this instrument, which is the human body, the human voice, and what we're going to get from our average cross section of middle school, junior high, lower high school kids. Fair is the white star of twilight, the sky clearer at day's end. Fair is the white star of twilight, and the sky clearer at day's end. I'm not making fun. I'm just singing like what I might sing like if I had no concept. I was just trying to speak through the text like an average person. There is the white star of twilight and the sky clear at day's end. Would you all just kind of just say it about that inflection and tempo? Ready? Fair is the white star of twilight. Yeah, I hear that same kind of camera that I'm using. So, and I'm not trying to be hokey about like, fire is the bright star of twilight. Not doing that. Just so, haven't you heard your own voice recorded sometimes just in conversation? And you go, eek, good. You suddenly want to become this way. You go, oh, I don't speak like that. Because it's like, I've heard myself and I would be like, fair is the bright star of twilight. And that's what it sounds like to you. It's like, oh, Lord. But that's how we all would approach this if we hadn't had some training, or if we just don't know any better. Why? Because we talk like that every day. And so singing becomes opera man, opera woman to the average student in your choir. When we ask them to do these little expansion vocal track, the most effective sounds I've ever gotten from a junior high and high school choir were when I said, all right, everybody, pretend that you are opera singers. And they take their bodies and they do the very same thing that they think an opera singer does, right? Oh, gee, I've never seen you stand like that before. Or your posture is fantastic. Or they take these breaths or whatever. And then suddenly the vocal mechanism is open, but to all of us, I'm sorry if I speak to you in the way, through the spaces that I would need to sing in, I sound affected to myself. And so that's going to be number one, is getting through that with your students, because they're going to think they sound like geeks. Inside, it'll be that extreme to them. From fair is the white star, that much difference will seem like. So that's why I say this is a gradual, over months concepts that we're going to accept, not perfect singing. I mean, it's just not going to be even near what you do with them in one rehearsal. The next day it'll go back. The next day it'll go back, and we're just really insistent. So silliness is great. I mean, silliness in a cartoony way can get to the point where maybe that's one of the ways that we bridge into, then it starts to make sense for them and they lose their inhibitions about doing just normal things. So, would you say fair is? Fair is. Let's pretend that we are British now. There are ways to just be silly and do some things that are a little different, because everybody has an image of what And I'm not talking about this kind of British, right, a Cockney accent. I'm talking about what the Queen would say, or the King. So Oxford, the proper English, say fairies,
Fairies.
the white star
The white star.
of twilight.
Of joy.
Okay, so that has limitations, because this isn't an Oxford British piece. It's not by Purcell or Handel or something. This is a Native American poem that we're singing with an American choir. But the point is, say fair,
Fair.
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 So if you can immediately get your students and yourself to feel the difference between multiple thongs, but diphthong means two, triphthong means three, and what that means is that we might get 2 or 3 or 4 vowel combinations in one word. Say fair.
Fair.
You have done that on the vowel spectrum, just with diphthongs and triphthongs. So if we remove that like a silly Brit, we'd say fair.
Fair.
We get rid of it, and we have fair is. So it's not that you would do all of what I'm doing with your students. You'd lose them in 30 seconds. But you could do the British thing, and then say, repeat after me, fair is.
Fair is.
Do you feel how that in your mouth there's one position that everything stays in when you say the word fair? Do that.
Fair.
Do you feel that? You feel that? Now say fair.
Fair.
Do you feel like lots of things move around? Or don't you? When you say fair inside tongue, sides of the mouth. So there are those kinds of questions that can be really fast. And then it gets to the point quickly. So let's now try to sing on this text, okay? So right where we come in, and 2. Good. So you've already, all of you, and we have a lot of you are singers, so you're sensitive to this already. But we have little endings of words, right? We have beginning, middle, and ends. So the first thing I noticed was that most people weren't saying an F. I sort of heard that. Would you do this with this? This helps just to give a kind of kinesthetic point. So just say fair.
Fair.
It also helps to feel that the articulation is in the same line as the breath in the singing. So now just sing on one word, sing. Here we go. But emphasize the F, make more out of the F sound than the rest of it. And yeah. So now let's just say this with emphasis like this. Fairies. Say that.
Fairies.
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 The bright. Oh, the white.
The white.
I gotta know what my words are, don't I? So, and I do this in my regular rehearsals too. I make up words. But one of the concepts that you can use with your students, if you feel comfortable with it, is saying assembly line diction or assembly line articulation. So they understand that. Fair is the white star. We're going to try to not stop the sound. Not stop the sound. And we're going to connect the ending on to the, whatever it is, we're going to think that we can connect to the next one. So can we try that? We're going to articulate every single sound. Ready? Go. Fair is the white star of twilight. Now, can you do that when you sing? Here we go. 1 and 2. Yeah, but we have to make. So the reason that I'm counting, and I do this is a habit that I have, is so that people can, singers can, put their breath on rhythm, on the rhythmic pattern. So 1, 2, we know that the breath is going to have to be at least a beat before. So I'm going to count 1, 2, and you're going to breathe and say or sing fair. Here we go. 1 and 2, breath. Slow. T. Yeah. So it's not like, oh, that's perfect. It's that it starts to get at the concept that we don't want things like to be all articulated at a different time. We don't want twilight, which will happen, happens all the time. But when they start to listen for those kinds of things and feel them at the same time, we're building awareness. We're building awareness over time. Again, months and months and months. The whole concert process is going to be working on that, daily. How do we bring variety into it? We add dynamic shadings. We add. I'm talking about what I mean by dynamic shadings is long notes go somewhere and then like the messa de voce concept. And then dynamics themselves, that an entire verse might be softer or louder than another. We add text stress so that when I say twilight, the composer has set this twilight against tendency. The long duration is on the second syllable. Twilight, and that's what they'll do. So that is the white star of twilight. I would ask them not to do that in terms of the which syllable would be accented. Clear. So you've got 2 or 3 syllable words. Figure out what is the most understandable. That's another element that we can go toward. So now there's a concept made famous by Robert Shaw. And Robert Shaw was one of the great choral musicians of the late 20th century. And many of us who grew up and were educated in that part of the century, like myself, were in choirs with him. And I had the great opportunity to sing in some of his choirs and was really influenced by this just because as I was singing in the choirs, like if you play in a band or you play in an orchestra and something starts to happen inside the group, it becomes like, wow, an epiphany. You realize and you either buy it or you don't. And I became a real believer in this after spending hours and hours and hours count singing. I prepared Messiah, St. John Passion, and several other things. Under his direction, we spent like 4 hours a day count singing, where we didn't sing a word of text for 3 or 4 days of rehearsal. So I don't ever do it that much with my choirs, and only when, anyway. So, and I'll talk about that someday if there's ever a chance, but I don't think there is. So if we say 1, 2, 3, there's a 3. Say 3.
3.
Say T.
T.
And Shaw's idea was that extra sound, that extra diction sound, took time. So if we said 1 and 2 and 3 and the action of the tongue going into that 3 and slowed people down. So he took that away, and we were always taught, and I'm not the one. I mean, it's done by thousands of people all over the world, but is that it's said T, because 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 doesn't slow it down. So that's why if you've watched a video or you yourself have count sung before. I know DLF and I were both trained at Westminster Choir College, so she is she is into this too, because Shaw worked at or did lots of work at Westminster Choir College. So if I take this in three, 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T, it just keeps going over like we count. I would sing 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and a 1 and 2 and T. And where does the anda come? It comes from 1E and a 2E and a T and a 1E and a 2E and a T. Because if there were 16ths all the time, 4 of them, you'd sing 1E and a. 1E and a 2E and a TE and a 1E and a 2. So could we try that, please? Count singing now on your part. Here we go. 1 and 2 and go. 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and a 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T. Keep going, keep counting. 1 and 2 and T and 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 1 and 2 and keep going. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2 and T and 1 and 2. Yeah, and what happens after a long time, and I don't really think that 12 to 17-year-olds will ever acclimate to count singing for 4 hours a day. But I do think for 15 minutes, it can be an epiphany to them. Because as soon as the parts start moving in context, you start to hear, oh wow, the altos move on the end of 3 while I'm still sustaining. I mean, they're not articulating it like that, but that's what's going on inside them. And we're placing rests, we're placing breaths, because in order to say it and sing it on time, they have to breathe rhythmically. So it's a wonderful concept. I think it's a wonderful technique. And then I want to get this into, so let's sing staccato, please. I'd like you to go. Fa, here, fa, fa. Here we go. And 2, and go. So, 2 things that does is it causes a little bit of giggling because suddenly we have the altos going a little bit differently than the rest square. Anytime somebody moves in the context, it places it in a very pointillistic way, and then it just becomes, oh, there it is in time and space. The other thing is that it energizes slow singing. It gets that into it. And so then we would say, or then we could say, now put that kind of energy all the way through the line. Let's try it again now, singing normally. 1 and 2 and. Yeah, and I hear right now a completely different energized sound because we have awakened our abdominal muscles and just the expectation. And it's a combination of cognitive, kinesthetic, and imagery all in one, because we have not just count sung, but That technique, I think, works best if you've already placed the eighth notes. Yup, 1, 2, and T, and 1, and 2, and T. Otherwise, it'll just be sort of this random, they're not really lined up yet. But there we go. So thank you for being here. And we'll continue on with some more things next Tuesday, and then the following Thursday, which is our last class, will be sort of exactly what Ryan Bree was bringing up, meaning that we'll talk about some concepts, maybe discuss some solutions, okay? Yeah.
Are we planning to talk about how to choose music based on, like the age of preparation? I don't think, like, we all know that college kids are gonna be bored seeing people and you're not gonna get your second graders, but like does this make that at all?
We can certainly do that.
Thanks, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, see ya. Thank you, Emma. You didn't have to do as much as I had hoped, but